Hey, I'm back, and today I want to go over how to make some epic drums. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to make them from scratch using a synthesizer. I know some people think why would you do that? Of course, you can buy samples, there's all sorts of great sample libraries that have these kind of epic hits. But one problem with that is, of course, they cost lots of money, they can be expensive, and number two, there's not so many of them, so it's easy to get the same sound as someone else. So I want to show you how to make your own drums. Maybe this will save you some money, or maybe you can even use this to layer with some drums you already have. And I should give a warning. I'm going to try to do some Tom Tycho style sounds. They're going to be general drum sounds. It's not going to sound exactly like, Hans Zimmer's drums from so-and-so movie or Damage or something like that. If you want that sound, just buy that sound. But these should give you some nice, epic-ish sounds. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open Empower Synth. So if you don't know about this is a really cool synthesizer, and it's really great for this type of sound. It makes it really easy because it has great effects. So here's what it sounds like just on the default. So as you can hear, it's just a sine wave. So the first thing we want to do is take the attack, move it down, take the sustain, move it down. I'm going to move the decay up to 100 something. Let's say like 200, like 222. So I want, just to fade out really quick. So that's pretty good. I also want the release a little bit higher. I like this because if I take my hand off the key quickly, it doesn't just shut off. It kind of releases. That sounds pretty good. Now, the main part, I need to go here, and I have a sine wave going on oscillator 1. I'm going to go to this pitch ADSR. So if you're not using this synthesizer, what you need to do is find a way to control the pitch using an envelope. I'm going to set the attack at 0 here, sustain to nothing. I'll set the decay to, let's try 137 at first, or actually 143, just kind of changed it for me there. And I'm going to set this to -12. So in 143 milliseconds, it's going to drop down an octave. So here we go. Here's it without it. With it. So basically, I'm just making an 808 sound. I can change this a little bit. It'll change the tone, so. So depending on how fast, that kind of changes the tone, and depending on what type of drum you want to make, you can set that, but I'll set it here like 100. Sometimes I have to go back and change this because it's not the right sound that I want, but we'll leave it there for now. Now let's go into the noise oscillator, turn this on. I want white noise, but I'll leave the high pass on, but this is too much wet and dry. I want to set this to around, let's say, 35 or so, like this. Okay, if I play in this lower octave, you hear it, but you still hear, that's way too much hiss. I know you're saying that sounds terrible. Okay, but don't worry, we're going to fix it. Now let's go to the filter, turn this on. That sounds more like a drum, but the problem is I can't hear any high end. I don't hear any smack. So what I'm going to do is take this octave. Well, I could just move this up like this and until I get enough smack. But the problem is I want the filter to sweep down. And one of the great things about Empower Synth is I have this ADSR right here. So I'll move this all the way to 0, set the sustain to 0, and let's try to decay at, I don't know, 118? Oh, I need to set the frequency range. Let's try at 3 octaves, or let's try 2.5 first. So as you hear, as I move up the decay, that makes the tone change. So up here and down here. Let's try moving it down. I like that for the most part. Set the resonance down a little bit lower. I'm going to move up the saturation a bit too. I think you can hear it a little bit better now. A few things I want to change though is also a nice feature is this bivelocity. I can change the resonance and the frequency depending on the velocity, how hard I hit it. So let's try this. That's way too high. Let's try the resonance just a little bit. If I move it up really high, don't want that. That may be too much still. Okay, in general, I'm liking that. It's not perfect, but it's getting there. So one thing I do want to change now is, you see here this wet dry? I want this to be set so basically when I hit it hard, I want more bass. I want more of the oscillator 1, and when I hit it just a little bit, I want more of the noise, more of the white noise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to this M1. I'll set this to like, I'll call it MX, so like, or MV, mix velocity. Just a stupid name there. Go out, go here, I'll do learn, move this down to, say, 29, that's the lowest, and move it up to 47, it's the highest, which is probably too high, but I can change that later if I want to. Now I'll go into attach MIDI controller, just hit a key, and it says special velocity, so that means the velocity will change it. So now if I do this, but I think this is backwards, so the harder I'm hitting it, now I'm getting more white noise. So what I want to do is actually change this, so invert like this. But it's a little bit too far, so let's see. Move this down to about 45 and move this up to maybe 32. There we go. So there we go. So it's starting to sound like a drum. It's not perfect, but I think you can hear where it's going. But one of the things I'm not liking is I hear a little bit too much of this. It sounds too much like an 808. So let's move this decay down a little bit. So that's sounding pretty good to me. That's the kind of sound I want to hear. But it's still not perfect. I think, it still has like a boxiness. It sounds synthetic, but let's try to take that out. Let's go to the FX now. We're almost there. I'm going to take an equalizer. I'll turn the analyzer on. Go to this band 1. Use a high pass to cut out some of the lows. So now we can actually see what is there. That big spike there, I'm going to cut some of that out. So maybe I'll put a little bit more bass in there. Like, let's see, there. Okay, maybe I need a little bit more. I went too far with the decay. Let me move it up a little bit. Okay, that's sounding better to me. Now I'm going to take the saturator. I'm just going to use this. I basically just want to increase the volume and I want to cut off like some sharp peaks. So move here. I might even go a little bit harder. Try soft 2. I'll try soft 2. The soft 3 was a little bit much. So basically we're almost there. I have almost everything I want. But one more thing that makes a big difference is this delay. I'm going to use the reverb. I'm going to use a convolution reverb here, and let's go to the hall. 500 is way too much, so let's move it down to like 32. Okay, so try this one. This is from a lexicon unit, I think, just the impulse response. It sounds okay. Let's try clear hall. Way too long. Dark hall. Also way too long. Let's see here. Hall 1. That's getting better, but I think the one I want is probably jazz hall. So that's getting close to what I want. Maybe not perfect, but of course you can choose whatever you want. There's, tons of impulse responses. So choose whichever one sounds the best to you. And that's what you should go with. And from here, I can adjust things, however I want. If I think, this is too much, I don't know. For example, I have too much white noise. I can shift this up to, let's say, 35 and move this to around 50. And that's just changing it a little bit, but I think it may make it sound slightly different. I think you can kind of hear more of the oscillator 1, that sine wave dropping, so it gives it more of a punch as opposed to the smack. I've got one big thing for the EQ. I'm sorry about that. Let me turn all these off and go back to the EQ. Use the instant listen, and I go in here and I'll just listen around to see where I can find like the bad spots. Right around there, I hear this boxy sound I don't like. So let's take this. Dropped it about 6 decibels. Let's hear it without. Now, let's try to find some smack. Okay, turn everything back on. Okay, so I think that's hitting pretty hard, but like I said, there's all sorts of different things you can do. We can go back and change this more, so if I want a longer decay sound. So those are things I can do. I can go into this filter, adjust the resonance. And you can fool around with all sorts of things however you want. One thing you might want to do is take this. If you don't want like machine gunning, if you're planning on playing this fast, I would go to here, mod 1, click learn, move the synths, let's say to like 23 and negative 23, but actually it's 26, but whatever. Okay, now I go into here, go into random, go into change on MIDI note, and then move this down, etc. So now it's going to move the pitch and sense every time I click a new note. So let me get out of here. Turn this on, and now let's try it. So, I don't know, it's kind of hard to hear, but if you play something fast, like you try to do like a kind of drum roll, it'll start machine gunning if you don't have that. So that will kind of reduce it, but you still need to do some other things, but that's basically one thing you can do. You can automate other parameters too. Like another thing you might want to do the same way is the frequency range of the filter. That will also give it a kind of like movement, so it doesn't sound like the exact same hit happening over and over and over again. So those are other things you can do. And there's lots of other things you can do here with the effects, but I'm going to go through that next time, and I'll try to do some other things. So there'll be a part 2 to this video if you guys like it, and subscribe and share it and do all that other good stuff. And if there's anything I missed and you don't understand, let me know and I'll go through it. But hope you liked it. Until next time, see you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that video, please remember to thumbs it up, check out some of my other videos below, and don't forget, subscribe. Thanks. Bye.